Hello and welcome to the Mal and Johnny Show. Now, the thing about artists like myself and Johnny, sometimes the phone calls come in and we have to say yes or no. Other times we create our own projects. And Johnny, you're at the start of an exciting journey, aren't you?
Yeah, I think I can't do nothing. I'm a bit like you, Mal. If I'm not doing like my ordinary things like singing, dancing, and acting, I tend to write stuff. So I wrote the book, as you know, called Peg's Boys, which I got some royalties for it last week, which is
Come
nice.
on, come on.
And I thought to myself, everybody tells me it's very visual, so and filmic, because I write like I see it in my mind before I write it down. So because it's quite filmic, I thought, well, I'll write a film.
Right.
So I'm going through the book bit by bit. Obviously, stuff that's said, I've got to show rather than say it, because
Yeah.
that's what they say, show rather than say. So it's I'm enjoying myself. It's like reading a book all over again.
Now, you've written plays before because you did the Dorothy Squires one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did that with Michael Povey. See, I've been very lucky in my career because I've worked with some very good people. Michael, obviously, for the stage play. And when I originally thought of Peg's Boys, well, it wasn't my idea. It was a fellow called Endaf Emlyn,
Oh, yeah.
who was
Lovely.
a director and a friend of mine from way back. We were both on Disco Down together, which is a pop show back in the 60s. And I told him about the story when I walked over the mountain with these kids from Caerphilly to Cardiff. He said, that's a great idea for a story. So that's where the germ came of Peg's Boys, because Peg was the woman whose kids I was friendly with, see?
Right.
She was a bit eccentric, as you know, and she was she was an enigma. Nobody knew where she came from because she had this posh accent. She lived in Caerphilly and my staying places, but she made French toast for breakfast. I mean, she wasn't a normal person you get in the valleys, right? Nothing, not disparaging the valleys, but she
No,
was like
no. Different.
different. So anyway, that was the story. So I wrote the book, and the book's done quite well, and people like it. And so I thought, all right, start now. And I did it with did you ever see Stand By Me, the film?
Yes. Yeah.
With the
Kids
with
on
the
the...
three kids.
Yeah.
That was with three kids, right?
Right.
So I thought that's the same kind of format. It's these three kids on an adventure, and there was always a bit of voiceover going on from the older kid looking back at his life. So I've got the older the old man talking about his life when he was a kid. See, so there's lots of voiceovers in the actual book. So I can't do loads of those because it won't be a film.
Yeah.
So when it's a voiceover, when I can turn it into dialogue and give it to the other kids, or I can have it as a scene where it's like shown and not talked about.
So, have you written a screenplay before?
I've worked on a screenplay before with let me think, Paul Turner. Do you remember Paul?
Yeah, who was Oscar nominated, wasn't he?
He was Oscar nominated, and he liked the idea of the Dorothy Squires book I wrote. He said, that's a great film about this woman's life. I said, yeah. So I worked with it, first of all with Paul. And so I got a lot of knowledge from working with him, obviously, because he was an editor before that. So he could see pictures and stuff. So then poor old Paul, he died. And then I saw Peter Edwards, who was another director I'd worked with. And he was in the Eisteddfod, and I said, I got this idea. I said, I started it with Paul, and he said, well, write a page, like a kind of a bit of a blurb, so I can see it, and I'll tell you what, if you can do it in 90 words, he said, I'll have a look. So I did it. And he came back to me, he said, yeah, we can do this. This is great.
Wow.
So I'm working with Peter on it.
Lovely, great.
And he's the one who told me to write the book. He said, write the book first. Then once you've got the book written, it's your copyright and nobody can steal it. So if ever anybody wants to make this film about Dorothy, I got it all.
Yeah, yes.
And funny enough, my agent actually, she's quite interested in it. She's going to try and push it for me, but that's another story. So that's the kind of schooling I've had with writing film.
Yeah,
working with three very good directors.
And of course, you've been in lots of projects.
I've been in films, and I've been in TV series and stuff.
So how do you write, with pen and paper, or have you got a computer program?
No, but I got a program called Final Draft.
Final Draft, lovely.
Which is fantastic because you don't need to start pushing things in where they're supposed to be. It'll say title heading, and you press a button and it puts it in the right place.
Right.
And it'll go dialogue, and it'll change it to where the dialogue should be. And it'll go character, and the character will pop right in the middle. So it helps you because it's not writing it for you, but it's putting it to look like a proper script.
In the format. Great.
in the format. Yeah.
So how long have you given yourself a deadline?
Um, well, I've been at it now since, let me think, about 2 or 3 weeks. I reckon it'll be a good couple of months. 'Cause I got all the gubbins there because I got the book. So it's not like I got to think of it. All I got to do is change it into a film. So I'm hoping I'll get it done in about a month.
Yeah, because quite often, they bring in a screenwriter for somebody's book and they end up hating each other. Do you think you end up hating yourself?
No, I don't hate myself.
I can't believe what he's done to my book. Well, it's a film now. You can't have it as a book anymore.
It's like people say to me, did you write this book? Who was the ghostwriter? I said, nobody.
No.
I said, I wrote it myself.
Yeah.
I said, I may be a boy from my stay who's didn't have a great education, but I'm not stupid.
I'm not stupid. Not completely stupid. Anyway, that's the thing. Isn't it? I remember you telling me the story about Dorothy Squires when she said, have you written any songs? And you said,
I said I can't write songs, and she said,
"How
you never tried?
How do you know you've never tried?" And it's
the same thing with a film or a book or anything. I think anybody's got a book in them. You see, but you got to think what it's going to be. What's the plot?
Yeah.
And I got to be careful with this book that I don't go running off at the mouth and there's stuff there that's not needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've got to make it sensible, so it's cut in from one scene to the next, and it's got some kind of format to it. You know what I mean?
I totally really, because a lot of people then think, well, I better go to school and learn how to do it, isn't it? Which is great. I'm not knocking that at all. Because college and everything.
Well, having said that, I did do a few writing courses when I was back. Let me think. 10, 15 years ago, I went and one with Neil Simon's brother, Danny Simon.
Oh yeah.
Because he taught the comedy writing and stuff, and he taught me some great stuff.
Yeah.
You pick this stuff up for these people because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you the bit he told me about comedy?
No, go on.
He says always write logic, but there's always two logics, right? He said, and you'd send the audience the second logic they're not expecting. Right? I'll give you an example.
Come on.
We got Superman's and his wife. Okay,
Nice.
They live in this apartment which is about 24 stories up. How does Superman come into the house?
All right. Okay. Through the front.
What would you say?
Well, I suppose it depends. Most people go through the front door, but if you're Superman, you could go up you could fly in, couldn't you?
He'd fly through the window.
Fly through the
But
window.
he doesn't. He comes to the front door because that's what you don't expect him to do. Okay. So then his wife comes in, and he's been out working all day, saving the world, and he comes home. What does the husband do when he sees his wife when he comes home from work? He gives her a bit of a hug and a kiss, right?
Yeah, welcome home.
So what happens to her? He's the strongest man in the world, and she starts to beg, oh my God, he's hurting me. Okay. So then she said, I just slip into something a little more comfortable. She comes in, not in a negative, a suit of armor. Right? So this is, you know what I mean? There's the two logics.
Yeah.
And it works. And they're very good at teaching this stuff, the Americans.
Yeah.
I mean, you take it, did you ever watch Cheers?
Oh, yeah, I love Cheers.
I love Cheers.
Yes.
And what he said was, you can never get, if you write a line and you say, oh, you can have this line. No, it's got to be that person's line. It's got to be his knowledge of life because we've all different backgrounds, okay?
Yeah.
So the little woman, Carla, she was Italian, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So Norm comes in and he says, I've been looking for a job. It's terrible. I can't get anything. So he said, I got somebody that could get you a job, Norm. So he said, what have I got to do? Not much, just taste the food, kiss a guy in the lips occasionally. So it's the mafia. You said, only she could say that line. Do you know what I mean?
Very good, very good. And the thing is, the Americans, you're saying now that they're writing these things, they have a team of writers. When is it like more than one, like more than one episode? I was watching a program the other day about The Sopranos. Did you ever watch The Sopranos?
I only watched a couple of episodes. I never saw it. I wasn't hooked on it. But I mean, I know.
It's one guy's idea who becomes the showrunner, who writes writes a pilot and writes a bit more. But then they bring in a whole pile of writers, all sit around the table and...
Americans do that, don't they? They used to do the same with Cheers and with what's the other one? Friends.
Would you like that, or do you like to work on your own?
I like working with somebody. I enjoyed working with Mike Povey immensely because he was very knowledgeable about stagecraft. Because that was a stage play, and I'd never written a stage play, so I was guided by him. It's my knowledge and everything, but I worked with him, and it was great. We used to bounce off each other.
Great.
And the same with End of Emily. When I was writing the thing about originally about Peg's Boys, we were bouncing off each other, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to work. I don't know if I'd like to work with a team of 6 writers. Owen did My Family with what's his name? I forgot his name. You know the one I mean, don't you? He was.
Ryan.
It was about a.
No.
It was about a family. He was a dentist.
Oh.
Uh, oh, for goodness
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
my brain for I can't remember people's names. Anyway, she said there were American writers on it,
Right.
and when she went to do it, they did the first read through.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Then she said, "Right, well, we won't be doing that because we're rewriting tonight." And they wrote a complete new script.
Wow.
Because once they heard the read through, they thought, well, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Oh, we'll change all that. So actors have got to be quick and learn the stuff straight off the cuff. It must be very hard.
It is, isn't it? And they always say about musicals, they aren't written; they're rewritten.
Yeah.
Because I think they're making a film about Philip Burton, Richard Burton's sort of mentor. And when they were doing Camelot, he was out of town. It was a disaster, and so Richard called for Philip Burton, who grown up in Port Talbot, and he was a teacher. Then he went, became more theatrical, and he came and saved the day, because it's still the same, bits, but it's in the wrong order, and it's not quite.
Working. He was a drama teacher in Ty Bark,
yeah, and then
he ended up. I think he adopted Richard.
Yes.
Richard, like when he was about 14 or 15. And he was his mentor, as you say.
Yeah, but he actually saved Camelot. I mean, so it's amazing, isn't it? It's having that insight. Well, look, we wish you well.
Now, what about you? Because you write lots of songs.
Yeah, well, I don't know, Johnny.
One a week. Do you work with anybody, or do you only do your own stuff?
Well, I tend to get everything in the right order. Then I bring in people to do different things, like the string arrangements or the brass arrangements.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about the arrangement. I'm talking if you write the lyric, does somebody write the music, or vice versa?
No, I tend to do it all myself, really. I've just been working with Ria Jones, and I had the same conversation. I said, "Do you write?" She said, "I don't write." I said, "How do you know if you've never written?" So we've written a song together, which is nice. So lots of different projects. I've got all the stuff back from Elton John, as you know. That's funny, I haven't mentioned him for
because he only writes the music, and he gets Bernie Taupin to write the words.
Very rarely writes the words. I think he wrote the words to "Don't Go Breaking My Heart."
Oh, did he? Is only number one.
And, so that's funny, isn't it? But because they are quite simple compared to some of the other ones, which is great. But it was just right. And so I've got all those songs back, and I'm sort of redoing the Gus Dudgeon was Elton's producer. He produced Space Oddity with David Bowie and stuff like that, So he was brilliant. Yeah. He was the most successful producer in the world in 1975, 76, 77. He just done Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and so he was my producer. So as happened with my career, stop-start, it started because my voice had broken. So he took over my career, and then he fell out with the rest of the record company, and then he left, and so my career stopped again. But I've got these 5 tracks that Gus produced, and they've got the Elton John band on them, and they've got the guy who did the strings for Long and Winding Road, a guy called Richard Hewson. So they sound sonically, they sound great. Whether they're any good, only time will tell. But sonically, they sound terrific.
It's amazing when you listen to some of the stuff you did years ago. I remember doing one track, and it was Bill Shepherd was the MD.
Right.
Who was the MD for the Bee Gees.
Oh, man.
And they work with all these people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And another one came over from America, and he was working for President Ray. He was working for Eddie Kastner when I was recording for Eddie. And this guy was Al Martino's producer.
Wow.
Nice guy,
Yeah.
But you work with these, it's great, isn't it? Because you get this... You get their influence, don't you? You get the stuff that they do. It rubs off on you a bit.
It's all it's all sort of part of the growing process. I do remember a story that Larry Page, the Teenage Rage.
He died the other day.
He passed away.
It was on. I saw it on Facebook.
Yeah. He because he was Page One Records, and of course, when there was a new arranger, a new writer, or somebody, everybody clamours to get part of that magic, don't they? So he booked, and I think he was a guy who'd arranged for the Bee Gees, and so he arranged the strings, and
it might have been this guy Bill Shepherd.
It cost a lot of money. It did cost a lot of money. Anyway, they went to the session, and he'd saved that. He would think about the song, so he wrote the strings, and they were only in for the last 10 bars. Larry said, Write some more. I want them all. I want them all over the place. So suddenly in the corner, just sticking some more. Never mind the quality. Feel the width.
Well, I told you what Eddie Casner said, didn't he? He had this guy in. He did all the love affair hits. I can't think of it. He was the lover. He did all those love affair hits, okay? And he brought him in to do one of my records, and he said, "I don't care what you spend, but I don't want glockenspiel, 2 notes, 15 quid."
Well, that's interesting. One last thing before we go, but the bass player Herbie Flowers, he passed away recently as well. Played on all
did he?
All of Elton John's records, and but he also played on that Lou Reed's "Walk on the Wild Side." Boom,
yeah,
boom, doom,
I remember that. Yeah.
But it's actually a double bass and an electric bass. So you can't get that sound with just one bass. It's a unique sound, and that's what he came up with. And the thing he was most delighted about: 2 basses, double fee.
Going back to Larry Page at teenage age, was he from Port Talbot, or was he have a relationship?
Yeah, he told me he was. His real name was Larry Davis. He was from Neath Port Talbot.
And he married a girl much younger than himself. Do you remember this girl singer called Jade?
Yeah, I'm sort of in touch with Jade, and I haven't really spoken to her since I heard the news.
Because they went to live in Australia, didn't they?
Yeah. I think he had a great life. I mean, some amazing stories. Really old school,
But he started the Kinks. He took them to Eddie Casner.
And the Trogs. And the Trogs. Daniel Boone. Was it Daddy? Anyway, he had massive hits, loads of hits with lots of people, except he didn't have one with me.
No,
it's the story of my life. As I always say, look at my CV. The only person you would have heard of is me.
I tell you what, look, there's a lot of luck in this game, as you know. Yeah. And as my wife always tells me, it's the same with you. Yeah. We've had great careers, we've met fantastic people, and we're still working.
We're still working. We're still buying that lottery ticket. Every play we write, every film we write, every song we write, we're still buying the ticket. Every podcast we publish. You never know. You never know who's listening. You never know. Somebody might pick us up for a TV series. Anyway, well, look, all right. Have a good week. All the best with the screenplay. And if there's a part
when I finish it, I will send it to you, and you can have a read. See what you think.
Yeah, if there's a part for a good-looking sort of bald guy in his,
only if he wears white glasses.
I know just a guy.
and a red suit.
It's goodbye from Steven Spielberg.
It's goodbye from me.
See you soon, bye.